question a lot of people always ask, did I make some money when, they were bought out? Did I make millions? People I know and closely work with make millions? Yes, they did. And that's because, for those of you who are new, my name is Jean Marie. I actually quit my job last April to do a 6-month sabbatical, and I've recently started a new job. I am on my 3rd week or something like that. And it's a fully remote job, but of course, with my line of work, I am an account manager, so I have to go out and see clients. And while it's very early days for me in this company, I don't even have my book of business yet. A colleague of mine was in town a few days ago, so I wanted to take that chance to work together in person. And so So even if I am remotely, even if I work remotely most of the time, instances like that, I'd love to see people, and be able to interact with them. So I was in the office for 2 days. We also saw a client, so that was nice. And so my schedule was a little bit out of whack this week. Thus, I'm filming on a Friday. And I have a call in 15 minutes, so I have to wrap this up. Anyway, let's see if I can do this in 15. Today I wanted to talk about why I prefer working for a startup versus a bigger tech company or bigger corporation. And this is based on my experience. And I think it's helpful that I share this. In this tough job market, people have a lot of choices out there, from big corp to like a very early phase startup. And I think it's good to educate yourself as to the pros and cons with doing both, or something like in the medium size, right? And that's literally what this video is for, to help you guys, if you're job searching, to broaden your options. If you've always been close to the idea of working for a startup and you've really just wanted to be like in a big corp, maybe this video will change your mind. Or it could be the other way around. Maybe you were looking to be in a startup, but then this video might tell you why you wouldn't want that, or why that wouldn't work for you. So I hope it's going to be helpful. And yeah, let's dive right in. Okay, so first of all, there's no official definition of what a startup is. And people can call themselves a startup after being around for 15 years. I don't necessarily think I agree with that, because there's no like very strict definition. They can call themselves that. So just for the sake of this video, and just for the sake of alignment, and you know what I'm talking about, let's define a startup as something, a new company that's less than 10 years old. To be honest, 10 years is a little bit of a stretch in my opinion, but I do see why a company can still be considered a startup in that range. So let's keep it below 10 years old, ideally less, much less. And it has to be something, it has to be a company that has a product or a service that's innovative enough or disruptive enough to a certain industry or space. If you just recently opened a sushi restaurant and it's 2 years old, it's not a startup. So it has to be something innovative or disruptive, or a new type of technology. You don't have to be the first one to do that, but at least one of the first few ones, right? Something new that is brought to the space. So that's how we're defining startup today in this video. Okay, so why do I prefer working for a startup versus a bigger corporation? There's a lot of reasons why. But first, I want to make it clear that when I'm looking to work for a startup, there's so many things I look at and I consider before I even get into an interview, or especially before even working for that company. And I guess it's helpful because I have worked, it's helpful because I have worked for a startup, a very successful one. And so I kind of saw what a successful startup looks like, and potentially what one that wouldn't succeed, or one that is not the one that is more on the risky side. So let me give you a quick background on my own startup experience. And I was the 70th employee. I wish I was there sooner. The question a lot of people always ask, did I make some money when, they were bought out? Yes, I did. Did I make millions? I did not. Did people I know and closely work with make millions? Yes, they did. And that's because they were there very close from the beginning. I came a little bit later. 70th employee, you'd think I would have more. But I think also, okay, I was a 70th employee. That's still early on, but my position was very low. I was a sales assistant slash client relations manager. I didn't have a lot of experience then, and I simply didn't know what it was to work for a startup. Like, I didn't know to negotiate my shares, and I didn't. You should absolutely do that, especially if you have the experience and you can leverage what you were bringing to the table. At that point, I wasn't confident to negotiate anything because I was very new in my career. I didn't know that I should have negotiated shares, or you can even do that. Number 3 or 2, I didn't even know what number of shares made sense for someone like me at that point. And so I came into it very blindly. But for someone who did come into that blindly and barely knew anything about equity options and all that stuff, I did make some money. It's money that I would never have made anywhere else in lump sum. I'm in lump sum at least. It was 6 figures, and it was in lump sum, and it helped me buy the house or renovate the house. So that was still a good amount of money, but I didn't make millions like some other people did. And that's why I'm on the lookout for the next startup where maybe I can make millions and hopefully retire. So that's reason number 1 as to why I want to work for a startup. It's because of the equity opportunity. I saw what I could have had. I had a little bit of taste of that, and I knew I was a little bit too late coming into it, and I was just naive. Like, I didn't know anything. I had zero idea, and I'm sure a lot of you are on the same boat as I was. You probably have no idea how these things work. Just because you're joining a startup early on doesn't mean you're gonna get a lot of equity enough for you to make money later on. It could be that the company will fail and you're not gonna get anything, or the company will succeed but you didn't really negotiate well your equity and you didn't really get much anyway. So you get a little bit, but not enough if you would have fought for more. So know your value, right? So that's reason number 1, like really the equity opportunity. Number 2, in my startup experience, like I said, I started as like the 70th employee. When I left, I think they were very close to 500. I don't remember, but somewhere around that. And that's where I grew. Like, that's where I learned so much. The 5.5 years experience I had in a startup, I would say would be equivalent to like a 10, 15-year experience in a big corporation. I would never have learned all of those things that I learned if I was working in big corp, where you are just given a checklist and you just do this, you do this is your job description, and that's exactly what you do with your life. No. In a startup, there's no structure. You wear a million hats. Today you'd be asked to do something, but there's no process on how to do that. And you're supposed to build a process on how to do that. And then you realize, a lot of things are not working. This is not sustainable. And you're forced to be creative enough to improve the processes that you have to be doing for the next months and years of your life in that company. And those processes that you build out end up being the processes that help the team grow, or that they continue to use. And these are things you would never experience if you were working for big corp. And just being able to grow and learn how to basically build a company. I wasn't building the company or the product, obviously, but in my little own department, I was able to contribute to little things that became bigger things later on. And it may seem little to me at that time, but it mattered, and it was foundational to how things evolved later on. So that's really reason number 2, the growth and the learning. You're like fast tracked. And speaking of fast track, number 3 is you get promoted fast, you advance fast. Of course, this is if you also deserve it, right? But in a startup, you are given this platform and this opportunity to shine and to show your skills. And even if you were in a big corp, no matter how great you are, a lot of times, not saying all the time, a lot of times it's so hard to showcase that, especially if you're someone like me, who I don't really like to tap myself in the back and like present myself that I'm this good, I can do. That's just not my personality. And I like to keep it quiet. And if you see the value of my work, great. And in a startup, it's easy for managers to see people's value because it's a very small and intimate group. And that's where I thrive. In a corporation where everybody has to put themselves on a pedestal, announce everything they did today, every month, all the achievements they've had. Like, I don't do that. Like, I do things, I do my job very well, but I keep it quiet. And that's not always a good thing. I know that that's like my weakness, but that's just who I am. And that's why I thrive in a very intimate environment. You get the opportunity to be promoted fast and quicker than you were in big corp. So for example, in my 5.5 years, I got promoted 3 or 4 times in 5.5 years. You can't have that in big corp. And that means I bumped up my pay range quickly. I bumped up my title quickly, and that gave me a broader and wider opportunity for growth anywhere else if I wanted to go anywhere else, right? And that was very pivotal in my career because they really taught me how to do what I do today. It really started there. And I don't think I would have gone that fast in my career if I work in big corp. Also, I started my career very late here because I moved to the States when I was, how old am I? 26, 27. And before that, we had a little business in the Philippines. And so when we moved here, I didn't really have a career. Like, I haven't held like a real corporate job yet. And so I kind of started late. And so the 5 years in a startup really helped me kind of play catch up a little bit. And last I want to say, I think, is the sense of ownership. So having that equity opportunity allows you and drives you to really make sure the company is successful, right? Because if the company is successful, then your equity and ownership also grows. So you don't have, it kind of takes away this idea of your job as just a job and a salary you get every bi-weekly or whatever. It's, after being here for 5, 10, 15 years, if the company is so successful, I get a piece of that cake. So you are working hard and making sure that the company is growing and healthy, not just because you are on salary, but because you are part of that. You have that sense of ownership and you have a stake in it. So that makes it so much more exciting. Like, now I'm in a startup again, and when we are closing deals, when the sales team is closing deals with really good logos, like, you get that excitement, like, oh my gosh, we're gonna make it. Because it's not just because you work there, but because you have some ownership. And it makes work a little bit more worthwhile versus just any other big corp where you retire and then you're done. It just gives you a little bit more juice and excitement for what you're doing. With that said, I don't just recommend diving into any startup. With my little bit of experience in the startup world, I kind of have an idea on what to look at and what to look for, what to evaluate if something is healthy enough or promising enough for me to join. And let me go over that quickly. So let me know if you have any questions down in the comments. Happy to have a conversation. Really, I'm just here to help. And yeah, I hope this found its way to somebody who is looking for this type of information. So have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.